This was the first M16 variant adopted operationally, originally by the United States Air Force. It was equipped with triangular handguards, buttstocks without a compartment for the storage of a cleaning kit, a three-pronged duckbill flash suppressor designed to preserve the shooter's night vision by disrupting the flash, full auto, and no forward assist. The M16 has a safe, semi- and auto-selective fire trigger group. Bolt carriers were originally chrome-plated and slick-sided, lacking forward assist notches. Later, the chrome-plated carriers were dropped in favor of Army-issued notched and Parkerized carriers, though the interior portion of the bolt carrier is still chrome-lined. The barrel rifling had a 1 in 12 twist rate to adequately stabilize the M193 ball and M196 tracer ammunition. The Air Force continued to operate these weapons until around 2001, at which time the Air Force converted all of its M16S to the M16A2 configuration. The M16 was also adopted by the British SAS, who used it during the Falklands War. XM16E1 and M16A1, also known as Colt Model 603. The United States Army XM16E1 was essentially the same weapon as the M16 with the addition of a forward assist and corresponding notches in the chrome bolt carrier. A rib was built into the side of the receiver to help prevent accidentally pressing the magazine release button while closing the ejection port cover. The M16A1 was the finalized production model and was produced from February 1967 until 1982. To address issues with the XM16E1 for the M16A1, a closed birdcage symmetric flash suppressor with open side slots to the top, bottom, left and right replaced the XM16E1's three-pronged flash suppressor, which caught on twigs and leaves from 1967 onwards. Various other changes were made after numerous problems in the field. Cleaning kits were developed and issued while barrels with chrome-plated chambers and later fully lined bores were introduced. A small storage compartment inside the stock was introduced. The buttstock storage compartment is often used for storing a basic cleaning kit. To promote reliability and durability, the mechanical behavior of the operating system was revised to make it compatible for using U.S. military-issued ammunition loaded with WC-846 ball powder, which reaches peak pressure significantly quicker than the extruded IMR 8208M powder, and increases the cyclic rate of fire for which the operating system was originally designed. Revisions like reducing the diameter of the gas port to mitigate the higher port pressure caused by the ball powder to properly gas the operating system again, updating the buffer assembly, changing the bolt carrier surface finish to manganese phosphate, and the gas tube material to stainless steel contributed to improved mechanical behavior. The rib was extended on production M16A1S to help in preventing the magazine release from inadvertently being pressed. The hole in the bolt that accepts the cam pin was crimped inward on one side, in such a way that the cam pin may not be inserted with the bolt installed backwards, which would cause failures to eject until corrected. With these and other changes, the malfunction rate slowly declined, and new soldiers were generally unfamiliar with early problems. The M16A1 saw limited use in training capacities until the early 2000s, but is no longer in active service with the United States, although it is still standard issue in many world armies. M16A2. The development of the M16A2 rifle was originally requested by the United States Marine Corps in 1979 as a result of combat experience in Vietnam with the M16A1. It was officially adopted by the Department of Defense as the Rifle 5.56mm M16A2 in 1983. The Marines were the first branch of the United States Armed Forces to adopt it in the early to mid-1980s, with the United States Army following suit in 1986. Modifications to the M16A2 were extensive. In addition to the then new Stanag 41725.56 by 45mm NATO chambering and its accompanying rifling, the barrel was made with a greater thickness in front of the front sight post to resist bending in the field and increase rigidity under sustained fire. The rest of the barrel was maintained at the original thickness to enable the M203 grenade launcher to be attached. The barrel rifling was revised to a faster 1 in 7 twist rate to adequately stabilize the new 5.56 by 45mm NATO SS 109/M855 ball and L110/M856 tracer ammunition. The heavier, longer SS-109/M855 bullet reduced muzzle velocity from 3,260 feet per second to about 3,110 feet per second. A new adjustable rear sight was added, allowing the rear sight to be dialed in for specific range settings between 300 and 800 meters to take full advantage of the ballistic characteristics of the SS-109/M855 rounds, and to allow windage adjustments without the need of a tool or cartridge. The flash suppressor was again modified, this time to be closed on the bottom, so the new birdcage-type muzzle device would not kick up dirt or snow when being fired from the prone position, and additionally act as an asymmetric recoil compensator to reduce muzzle climb. A spent case deflector was incorporated into the upper receiver immediately behind the ejection port to prevent hot cartridge cases from striking left-handed users. The action was also modified, replacing the fully automatic setting with a 3-round burst setting. When using a fully automatic weapon, inexperienced troops often hold down the trigger and spray when under fire. The United States Army concluded that 3-shot groups provide an optimum combination of ammunition conservation, accuracy, and firepower. The number of rounds fired in a burst is determined by a cam mechanism that trips the trigger mechanism for each shot in the burst. For the burst, the trigger must be held down for the full duration of the burst. The M16 series will terminate the burst if the trigger is released before the burst is complete but keep the cam in position. Thus, the next time the trigger is pulled, the weapon will only fire 1 or 2 rounds. The USMC has retired the M16A2 in favor of the newer M16A4. A few M16A2s remain in service with the United States Army Reserve and National Guard. The handguard was modified from the original triangular shape to a round one, which better fits smaller hands and could be fitted to older models of the M16. The new handguards were also symmetrical, so armories need not separate left and right-hand spares. The handguard retention ring was tapered to make it easier to install and uninstall the handguards. The new buttstock became 10 times stronger than the original due to advances in polymer technology since the early 1960s. Original M16 stocks were made from cellulose-impregnated phenolic resin. The newer M16A2 stocks were engineered from DuPont, Zytel glass-filled thermoset polymers, and became a replacement part for the preceding M16A1. The new buttstock was lengthened by 5/8 of an inch and included a fully textured polymer butt plate for better grip on the shoulder and retained a panel for accessing a small compartment inside the stock, often used for storing a basic cleaning kit. The A2 profile has a greater thickness from the front sight post to the muzzle after bending in this area was reported in the field. Tests by the M16 A2 team showed that this increased the resistance to intentional bending in this area by a factor of 9. As to not further increase weight beyond acceptable levels, and to maintain commonality with the M203 grenade launcher, the rear half under the handguard maintained its original thin profile. After the new technical data was submitted, the team discovered that they had made an error in assessing the problem. The replaced bent barrels were not actually bent. When inspecting some using a bore scope, they discovered that a burr left from drilling and reaming the gas port was causing copper fouling to build up at the front sight block, interfering with the gauge used. Cleaning this fouling caused the bent barrels to repass inspection. However, this discovery came too late in the process to revert the change in profile. A notch for the middle finger was added to the pistol grip as well as more texture to enhance the grip. The new pistol grips were engineered from Zytel glass-filled thermoset polymers. The M16, a 2-pistol grip, became a replacement part for the preceding M16A1. The standard Model 645 M16A2 has a safe, semi-3-round burst selective fire trigger group. It became standard issue for the United States Marine Corps and Army. There's also a safe, semi-3-round burst automatic selective fire trigger group Model 708 version of the M16, a 2-rifle named M16A2 Enhanced, used by some militaries around the world. M16A3. The M16A3 is a modified version of the M16A2 adopted in small numbers by the United States Navy SEALs, Seabees, and security units. It features the M16A1 selective fire trigger group providing safe, semi-automatic, and fully automatic modes. Otherwise, it is externally similar to the M16A2. There were 2 versions of the M16A3, the M16A3E1 and M16A3E2. The E1 was a fixed carry handle model, where E2 was a removable carry handle. M16A4. Adopted in July of 1997, the M16A4 is the fourth generation of the M16 series. It is equipped with a removable carrying handle and Picatinny rail for mounting optics and other ancillary devices. The M16A4 rear aperture sights are adjustable from 300 meters or 330 yards up to 600 meters or 660 yards, whereas the similar M16A2 iron sights can reach up to 800 meters or 870 yards. The introduction of the Picatinny rail required the use of a higher F-marked front sight base to raise the post. The FN-M16A4, using safe, semi, and 3-round burst selective fire, became standard issue for the U.S. Marine Corps. Colt also produces M16A4 models for international purchases, R0901, also known as RO901 with NSN1, 00501, 383, 2872, which features safe, semi, and auto modes, and R0905 or RO905, which has safe, semi, and burst modes. A study of significant changes to Marine M16A4 rifles released in February of 2015 outlined several new features that could be added from inexpensive and available components. Those features included a muzzle compensator in place of the flash suppressor to manage recoil and allow for faster follow-on shots, though at the cost of noise and flash signature and potential overpressure in close quarters, a heavier and/or free-floating barrel to increase accuracy from 4.5 MOA or minutes of angle to potentially 2 MOA, changing the reticle on the rifle combat optic from chevron-shaped to a semi-circular reticle with a dot at the center, similar to the M27 IAR's Squad Day optic, so as not to obscure the target at long distance, using a trigger group with a more consistent pull force, and even a reconsideration of the burst capability, and the addition of ambidextrous charging handles and bolt catch releases for easier use with left-handed shooters. In 2014, Marine units were provided with a limited number of adjustable stocks in place of the traditional fixed stock for their M16A4S to issue to smaller Marines who would have trouble comfortably reaching the trigger when wearing body armor. The adjustable stocks were added as a standard authorized accessory, meaning units can use operations and maintenance funds to purchase more if needed. The Marine Corps had long maintained the full-length M16 as their standard infantry rifle, but in October of 2015, the switch to the M4 carbine was approved as the standard issue weapon, giving Marine infantry a smaller and more compact weapon. Enough M4S were already in the inventory to re-equip all necessary units by September of 2016, and M16A4S were moved to support and non-infantry Marines. Derivatives. Colt Commando, also known as XM177 and GAU-5. In Vietnam, some soldiers were issued a carbine version of the M16 named XM177. The XM177 had a shorter 10-inch or 254mm barrel and a telescoping stock, which made it substantially more compact. It also possessed a combination flash hider and sound moderator to reduce problems with muzzle flash and loud report. The Air Force's GAU-5A or XM177 and the Army's XM177E1 variants differed over the latter's inclusion of a forward assist, although some GAU-5S do have the forward assist. The final Air Force GAU-5A and Army XM177E2 had an 11.5-inch or 292mm barrel with a longer flash and sound suppressor. The lengthening of the barrel was to support the attachment of Colt's own XM 148 40mm grenade launcher. These versions were also known as the Colt Commando model, commonly referenced and marketed as the CAR-15. The variants were issued in limited numbers to Special Forces, helicopter crews, Air Force pilots, Air Force security police, military working dog handlers, officers, radio operators, artillerymen, and troops other than frontline riflemen. Some USAF JU-5A/, as were later equipped with even longer 14.5-inch or 370mm 1/12 rifled barrels as the two shorter versions were worn out. The 14.5-inch barrel allowed the use of Miles gear and for bayonets to be used with the submachine guns, as the Air Force described them. By 1989, the Air Force started to replace the earlier barrels with 1/7 rifled models for use with the M855 round. The weapons were given the redesignation of GU-5P. These were used by the British Special Air Service during the Falklands War. The M4 carbine was developed from various outgrowths of these designs, including a number of 14.5-inch barreled A1-style carbines. The XM4, also known as the Colt Model 720, started its trials in 1984 with a barrel of 14.5 inches. The weapon became the M4 in 1991. Officially adopted as a replacement for the M3 grease gun and the Beretta M9 and M16A2 for select troops in 1994, it was used with great success in the Balkans and in more recent conflicts, including the Afghanistan and Iraq theaters. The M4 carbine has a 3-round burst firing mode, while the M4A1 carbine has a fully automatic firing mode. Both have a Picatinny rail on the upper receiver, allowing the carry handle and rear sight assembly to be replaced with other sighting devices. Colt also returned to the original Commando idea with its Model 733, essentially a modernized XM177E2, with many of the features introduced on the M16A2. The M5 carbine system was developed by Colt as an improvement on the M4 carbine. It incorporates a fully ambidextrous lower receiver, free-floating barrel, and lengthened upper rail. The M5 carbine has 4 possible barrel lengths: 10.3, 11.5, 14.5, and 16.1 inches. Other M5 variants and calibers are the M5 SCW or subcompact weapon in 5.56 by 45 mm, M5 300, also known as the .300 AAC Blackout, M5 SMG in 9 by 19 mm, CMK in 7.62 by 39 mm, M7 battle rifle in 7.62 by 51 mm, and designated marksman and semi-automatic sniper system both in 5.56 by 45 mm. The Diamaco C7 and C8 are a family of rifles developed concurrently with the M16A2. They are the standard issued rifle for Canadian forces manufactured by Diamaco, which is currently known as Colt Canada. The C7 is a branch developed from the experimental M16A1E1. Like earlier M16S, it can be fired in either semi-automatic or automatic mode, instead of the burst function selected for the M16A2. The C7 also features the structural strengthening, improved handguards, and longer stock developed for the M16A2. Diamaco changed the trapdoor in the buttstock to make it easier to access, and a spacer of ½ an inch or 13 mm is available to adjust stock length to user preference, along with the addition of hammer-forged barrels. Unlike the American M16A2S, the Diamaco C7S utilize A1-style rear sights. The Canadians originally desired to use a heavy barrel profile instead. The C7 has been developed to the C7A1, with a weaver rail on the upper receiver for a C79 3.4 by 28 optical sight, and to the C7A2, with different furniture and internal improvements. The Diamaco produced weaver rail on the original C7A1 variants does not meet the M1913 Picatinny standard, leading to some problems with mounting commercial sights. This is easily remedied with minor modification to the upper receiver or the sight itself. Since Diamaco's acquisition by Colt to form Colt Canada, all Canadian-produced flat-top upper receivers are machined to the M1913 standard. The C8 is the carbine version of the C7. The C7 and C8 are also used by Hærens Jegerkommando, Marine Jegerkommandoen, and FSK in Norway, Denmark's armed forces in all branches, and the Netherlands armed forces as its main infantry weapon. Following trials, variants became the weapon of choice of the British SAS. The Mk4 Mod 0 was a variant of the M16A1 produced for the U.S. Navy SEALs during the Vietnam War, and adopted in April 1970. It differed from the basic M16A1 primarily in being optimized for maritime operations, and coming equipped with a sound suppressor. Most of the operating parts of the rifle were coated in CalGuard, a hole of 1/4 inch, or 6.4 millimeters, was drilled through the stock and buffer tube for drainage, and an O-ring was added to the end of the buffer assembly. The weapon could reportedly be carried to the depth of 200 feet, or 61 meters, in water without damage. The initial Mk2 Mod 0 blast suppressor was based on the U.S. Army's Human Engineering Lab's M4 noise suppressor. The HEL M4 vented gas directly from the action, requiring a modified bolt carrier. A gas deflector was added to the charging handle to prevent gas from contacting the user. Thus, the HEL M4 suppressor was permanently mounted, though it allowed normal semi-automatic and automatic operation. If the HEL M4 suppressor were removed, the weapon would have to be manually loaded after each single shot. On the other hand, the Mk2 Mod 0 blast suppressor was considered an integral part of the Mk4 Mod 0 rifle, but it would function normally if the suppressor were removed. The Mk2 Mod 0 blast suppressor also drained water much more quickly and did not require any modification to the bolt carrier or to the charging handle. In the late 1970s, the Mk2 Mod 0 blast suppressor was replaced by the Mk2 blast suppressor made by Knight's Armament Company, or KAC. The KAC suppressor can be fully submerged and water will drain out in less than 8 seconds. It will operate without degradation, even if the rifle is fired at the maximum rate of fire. The U.S. Army replaced the HEL M4 with the much simpler studies in operational negation of insurgency and counter-subversion, or psionics, MA-1 noise and flash suppressor. Developed to increase the effective range of soldiers in the designated marksman role, the U.S. Navy developed the Mark 12 Special Purpose Rifle, or SPR. Configurations and service vary, but the core of the Mark 12 SPR is an 18-inch heavy barrel with muzzle brake and free float tube. This tube relieves pressure on the barrel caused by standard handguards and greatly increases the potential accuracy of the system. Also common are higher magnification optics ranging from the 6-power Trijicon ACOG to the Leupold Mark IV tactical rifle scopes. Firing Mark 262 Mod 0 ammunition with a 77-grain open-tip match bullet, the system has an official effective range of 600+ meters. However, published reports of confirmed kills beyond 800 meters from Iraq and Afghanistan were not uncommon. The M231 firing port weapon, or FPW, is an adapted version of the M16 assault rifle. It was designed for firing from ports on the M2 Bradley. With the expanding Vietnam War, Colt developed 2 rifles of the M16 pattern for evaluation as possible light sniper or designated marksman rifles. The Colt Model 655 M16. A-1 Special High Profile was essentially a standard A-1 rifle with a heavier barrel and a scope bracket that attached to the rifle's carry handle. The Colt Model 656 M16 A-1 Special Low Profile had a special upper receiver with no carrying handle. Instead, it had a low-profile iron sight adjustable for windage and a weaver base for mounting a scope, a precursor to the Colt and Picatinny rails. It also had a hooded front iron sight in addition to the heavy barrel. Both rifles came standard with either a Leatherwood or Realist scope, a 3 to 9 times adjustable ranging telescope. Some of them were fitted with a psionics noise and flash suppressor. Neither of these rifles were ever standardized. These weapons can be seen in many ways to be predecessors of the U.S. Army's SDMR and the USMC's SAM-R weapons. Israel was supplied with large numbers of M16A1 rifles by the U.S. government, many of which were shortened to make them more suitable for urban combat, storage in vehicles, and policing use by shortening them. The 20-inch M16A1 barrel was pruned back to just behind the gas port, while a new gas port was drilled to accommodate a carbine-length gas system as the front sight base was pinned in place. The barrel was also threaded for a standard M16A1 birdcage flash suppressor, and the resulting barrel was just shy of 13 inches overall, and a CAR-15 type collapsible buttstock was fitted to replace the fixed M16A1 fixed buttstock. Thus they approximate the size of CAR-15 type carbines. The informal term Makutzrar translates to sawed-off or shorty. The Chinese Norinco CQ is an unlicensed derivative of the M16A1 made specifically for export, with the most obvious external differences being in its handguard and revolver-style pistol grip. The Armata rifle, a copy of the Norinco CQ, and the Trailblazer carbine, a copy of the Norinco CQ Type A, are manufactured by Sam Shooter's Arms Manufacturing, also known as Shooter's Arms Guns and Ammo Corporation, headquartered in Metro Cebu, Republic of the Philippines. The S5.56 rifle, a clone of the Type CQ, is manufactured by the Defense Industries Organization of Iran. The rifle itself is offered in two variants: the S5.56A1 with a 19.9-inch barrel and 1-to-12 pitch rifling, optimized for the use of the M193 ball cartridge, and the S5.56A3 with a 20-inch barrel and a 1-to-7 pitch rifling, optimized for the use of the SS109 cartridge. The KH-2002 is an Iranian bullpup conversion of the locally produced S5.56 rifle. Iran intends to replace the standard-issue weapon of its armed forces with this rifle. The Tarab rifle is a copy of the DIO S5.56 manufactured by the Military Industry Corporation of Sudan. The M16S1 is the M16A1 rifle made under license by ST Kinetics in Singapore. It was the standard-issue weapon of the Singapore Armed Forces. It is being replaced by the newer SR-21 in most branches. It is, in the meantime, the standard-issue weapon in the reserve forces. The MSSR rifle is a sniper rifle developed by the Philippine Marine Corps Scout Snipers that serves as their primary sniper weapon system. The Special Operations Assault Rifle, or SOAR assault carbine, was developed by Frans based on the M16 rifle. It is used by the Special Action Force of the Philippine National Police. Taiwan uses piston-driven M16-based weapons as their standard rifle. These include the T-65, T-86, and T-91 assault rifles. Ukraine has announced plans in January 2017 for Ukra-borne service and Aeroscraft to produce the M16 WAC-47, an accurized M4 variation that uses standard 7.62 by 39mm AK-47 magazines. New Zealand has adopted the Lewis Machine and Tool Company's upgraded version of the M16 system to replace the Steyr AUG. This CQB-16 rifle will be fielded in 2017 and is named Mars-L, which stands for Modular Ambidextrous Rifle System Light. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumb up and share it with your friends. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future content. See you in the next video.